Good day, and welcome to another episode of Throwing It Back with Sean Farrell. I am Sean Farrell. God is great all the time. All the time, God is great. And before we get into it, shall we? I wasn't really feeling my best today, so I had a little bit of heartburn last night. A little bit of heartburn, a little bit of acid reflux, and still wasn't feeling my best. I mean, the acid reflux and the heartburn went away last night, but the effects were still there when I got up this morning. So, kind of took a good break this morning. So, with that being said, let's get right to it. Y'all don't want to hear about heartburn. So, the 1986 NBA draft was a turning point for the Philadelphia 76ers and most notably Charles Barkley, okay? And the story of the 76ers 86 draft, which was one of the most disastrous drafts the Philadelphia 76ers ever had, okay? But the process started back in 1979, okay? But the process started back in 1979 when on October 5th, 1979, the Philadelphia 76ers traded Joe Bryant, Kobe Bryant's dad, rest in peace, Kobe. The Sixers traded Joe Jellybean Bryant to the San Diego Clippers, who were in San Diego at that time. And in return, the Clippers sent them a future number one pick, and the future number one pick was 1986. Okay, the first pick of the 86 draft. So the trade was made in 79 for Joe Bryant, and the number one pick came back to them in 1986 for the Sixers. Okay. So, Pat Williams, who was the general manager of the Sixers at that time, said there was nobody that they really liked. Okay, at that point, okay, and then he had a little bit of a point because Len Bias, Roy Tarpley, Chris Washburn, William Bedford, okay, no. All these guys were involved in drugs. Len Bias tragically died the day after. So, Philadelphia also had the number one pick in 73, and they took Doug Collins. He was a solid player before injuries forced him into early retirement. And so, the Philadelphia 76ers were just a couple of years removed from the championship season of 83. They went 65-17 in 1983, the championship year, 52-30 in 1984, 58-24 in 85, and in 86 they went 54-28. Okay, so Dr. J said 87 would be his last year, okay? And Bobby Jones had retired, okay? But you still had Charles Barkley. You still had Dr. J, who couldn't perform like he used to, but he's still Dr. J. Then you had Andrew Toney, okay? So you had Barkley, Toney, and Irving, okay? Along with who's some of their other role players, man. Anyway, so you had a core of Barkley, Andrew Toney, and Irving. Okay, so I just said that Pat Williams didn't like anybody in the draft. And the names I just rattled off, had drug issues. So it came down to Brad Daugherty. Okay. And they didn't like Brad Daugherty either. No. Well, they didn't like Brad Daugherty. They did not love Brad Daugherty. Okay. So the Sixers went looking for someone to trade with. So the day before the draft, the 86 draft, okay, they traded the number one pick. Okay. They traded the number one pick to the Cleveland Cavaliers for a guy named Roy Hinson and $800,000. Let me say that again. They traded the number one pick to the Cleveland Cavaliers for Roy Hinson and $800,000. Okay. Not that Roy Hinson wasn't a bad player. He was solid. Okay. He was solid. But Charles Barkley talked about it. Charles Barkley said he was really excited to play with Brad Daugherty. Okay. He was really excited to play with Brad Daugherty. Okay. And so the 76ers didn't stop there. Okay. Not only did they trade for Roy Hinson, they also traded Moses Malone and Terry Catledge to the Washington Bullets. Okay. And the 21st pick in the 86 draft and a 1988 first round draft pick for Jeff Rulin and Cliff Robinson. No, not that Cliff Robinson. Not Portland Cliff Robinson. There was another Cliff Robinson long before the other Cliff Robinson showed up. So, yeah. So this is a different Cliff Robinson. Okay. So, they make these overhaul trades, okay? And Barkley found out. Charles Barkley said he found out while he was having some drinks at a bar, okay? Barkley said he was dropped off at 3 p.m. and around 5:30 p.m. One of the great Philadelphia writers, Phil Jasner, called Barkley and said the Sixers have traded the number one pick. And Barkley's like, wait a second. They can't be that stupid. The 76ers can't be that dumb. Yeah. They traded. They traded. And Charles Barkley said that was a career-defining moment of his time in Philadelphia, because after that, they really weren't that good. Okay. I mean, they had a solid season in 87. They were out of the first round in 87. They didn't make the playoffs in 88. So they were a lottery team in 1988. They picked up Hersey Hawkins in the draft, who proved to be a solid player. They got swept by the Knicks in 1989 in the first round. They did go 53-29 in 1990, but beat the Cavaliers in the first round, but got kicked out by Jordan again. Then they got kicked out by Jordan again the next year, in which they went 44-38. Okay. And so Barkley said his career in Philadelphia went down the toilet. So the 86 draft was a negative turning point for the Philadelphia 76ers. And Barkley says, really? We really weren't. Really? After they made that trade, the Sixers really weren't that good. Okay. And I remember the incoming general manager, John Nash, because Pat Williams was leaving after the 86 draft to build up the Orlando Magic franchise. Okay. John Nash said those trades were really made for Charles. And one of the reasons why they traded Moses Malone is they felt that Moses Malone would be counterproductive to Charles Barkley. Okay. But, okay. Moses Malone would be counterproductive for Charles for it having to be Charles Barkley's team, but you still could have had Brad Daugherty. You still could have had Brad Daugherty, who could have learned from Dr. J in 1987. So you could have had Dr. J, Andrew Toney, Brad Daugherty, and Charles Barkley. The potential starting lineup for the 76ers in 87. And Cliff Robinson. Ain't no telling how good they could have been. You had Dr. J mentoring Brad Daugherty. Okay. Now Brad Daugherty went on to have a pretty good career. Back injuries cut his time short. But Brad Daugherty was a 5-time All-Star. The 76ers, in retrospect, probably should have kept that one pick and used it on Brad Daugherty. But the after effects were not good because the 76ers got fleeced. Clearly got fleeced. Cliff Robinson averaged almost 15 points a game in 1987 for the Sixers. Then in 1988, he averaged 19 points per game. Okay. So Cliff Robinson actually had 2 solid years for the 76ers. Jeff Ruland. Jeff Ruland, by the 5th game of the 86-87 season, had blown out his knee. And his career was basically over. Okay. So he came back in 1992, made a brief comeback in 1992 with the 76ers. He did do that. But his career was effectively over. Jeff Ruland. Roy Henson averaged 14 points a game for the 76ers in 1987, but the 76ers got tired of him. And by midway through 1988, they had traded Henson to the New Jersey Nets. Okay. And so he also had his worst season scoring-wise. Just he was a rookie with Cleveland. He averaged 5.5 points as a rookie with Cleveland in 1984. Okay. Of course, Daugherty was a 5-time All-Star. As a result, Moses Malone getting traded to Washington. He averaged almost 21 points per game, 11 rebounds per game, and was a 3-time All-Star, 87, 88, and 89. Okay. And Malone also played in 314 games as well, while Jeff Ruland played in only 5 games. Okay. And not only that, the draft picks that the Sixers gave the Bullets turned into Anthony Jones, who lasted only 3 years. They also had picked up Harvey Grant. The Bullets picked up Harvey Grant, who actually was pretty solid for a few years with the Bullets. But the 76ers also drafted David Wingate from Georgetown in the 86 draft. But they ended up trading him to the San Antonio Spurs by the time the 1990 season came along. Okay. And so, yeah. So, yeah, that was the turning point for the Philadelphia 76ers. Not just for Barkley, but the franchise. And that's a side note. Okay. I just want to get into something real quick. The melee at the Palace, the last game of the season, 1990. Okay. It was a pretty physical game between Philadelphia and Detroit. Okay. Isaiah Thomas had thrown a elbow at Rick Mahorn, threw a punch at Rick Mahorn. Rick Mahorn didn't even blink. Rick Mahorn really didn't even blink, okay? And so they threw Isaiah out. And Dennis Rodman had fouled out of the game with about 15 seconds left in the game. He fouled out. And Barkley went over there and Barkley went over to Rodman and kind of just briefly taunted him like, yeah. You fouled out. Lambert comes over. Barkley at first taunted Rodman very briefly. Then Barkley walked away. Okay. And then Bill Lambert comes over. Bill Lambert comes over. Barkley and Lambert get hit physical. Barkley actually threw 2 punches and gave Lambert a black eye. Okay. Then Bill Lambert had actually connected with a punch of his own on Barkley. Okay. So this whole thing started when Barkley was taunting Rodman about fouling out. Okay. That's how the whole thing started. And yeah, that's just a little side note. Just wanted to throw that head in there. All right, that's it and that's all for Throwing It Back with Sean Farrell. I am Sean Farrell. May God bless you all. I'm out of here. Peace. God bless.